What is up, everybody? Welcome to the MMA Engine and welcome to Propability for UFC 285. We have an absolute stacked card this Saturday. Jon Jones, Ciryl Gane, 14 fights to talk about. As always, I'm here with Uncle WEEZY. WEEZY, what is up? Are you looking forward to the show and are you looking forward to the card this Saturday?
Yeah, definitely looking forward to both. These are some great fights. A little bit tough from a gambling perspective. We definitely have got a lot of stuff this week that's very, very juiced. That's just completely almost unbettable. So we got to see if the bookies have taken things too far and have given us too big a plus money numbers here that we can maybe hang our hat on and find some spots that stick out. Prop template's ready. It almost wasn't. I loaded the analytics wrong, Brady, and I figured it out about 20 minutes before showtime. So we're all set. All the analytics are correct now, and I'm ready to break down these fights and find some spots.
If you like juice, this is your card. WEEZY, can I interest you in a Bo Nickel, Chefchenko, Ian Gary, Basharat, Rachmanov parlay for minus 102?
Yeah, dude, we always say, Brady, if you can get a 5-leg parlay and still pay juice, then the bookies absolutely love you, and they will never cancel your account, and you will never be a long-term winner. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
To think that you can put 5 money lines together and still be paying over a 50% implied probability is just unbelievable.
It really is. But we'll see if we can find some money on the props because I think that's where the money's probably going to be made this week, WEEZY. All right. I say we get into it. Before we do so, if you guys can please leave a like on the video. Also subscribe here to the MMA Engine if you have not already. Me and WEEZY do go live every Monday for some probability. Last week, WEEZY, we did really well. The 2 weeks prior, they're a little bit rough, but last week was really well. We hit the probability parlay. We had the fight as a good decision in the Span fight, which that was voided, but also in the Lioness fight, and then also in the Peak fight. Yes, so we hit a PP. We're right back in it. Let's hit one this week, WEEZY. All right, let's start with the first fight on the card, and we have. I can find it. There it is. No, I can't find it.
It's Esteban Ribovic against Loic Razabov.
Okay, I found it. So we have Ribovic going against Razabov. We do have some totals here on 5 dimes. Nothing on Bet Online yet, but the over/under, we'll say 2.5 rounds. So the over 2.5 plus 100, the under 2.5 minus 130. The fight goes to decision plus 130. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 160. Both of these guys really good finishers, especially Ribovic. WEEZY, what is sticking out to you on this one here?
Yeah, so what's really kind of interesting here is Ribovic is undefeated. So he's never lost, and we don't know if this guy's durable or not, right? But he has finished all 11 of his professional wins inside the distance. And if we look down here, we can see that Razabov is 11 of 16, so he's just under 75%. Add those two numbers together, and these guys are finishing fights at an 81.5% rate. Now, Razabov's taking this fight on 1 week's notice here, and he's taking it at 155 when his last fight was at 165. And Ribovic was supposed to be fighting somebody else. It was going to be Camuela Kirk, who's a good grappler. You know, Camuela is pretty good all around, but he's known for his grappling. And I've seen out of Razabov, I've seen him use that wrestling before to kind of take, good strikers out of their game and really kind of put them where they're least comfortable. So I think we're going to see this one kind of slow down a little bit and perhaps go a little bit longer than what people think. But Ribovic has finished 3 fights between in the last 2.5 minutes of the fight. So I think it's kind of interesting if we're looking at an under 2.5 here, we might just want to pay up and go fight doesn't go to decision because we can see that 70% of their fights are going under 2.5, but 81% are not going to decision. And we're only paying up 5% here. We've got a big empty area of data here, Brady, simply because neither one of these guys has ever fought in the UFC before. So the prop template is liking the violence in saying that, out of 27 fights, we're underpaying by about 20% when you compare that 61.5% implied probability of the minus 160 line to the 81.5% combined fights finishing inside the distance. So even though I think stylistically this one might go long, it might go over 1.5, might go over 2.5, I also think narrative-wise with Loic making his debut, Ribovic making his debut, it being short notice for Loic and for Ribovic being a 100% finisher, that we probably want to err on the side of caution here. Maybe minus 160 for fight doesn't go to decision is not only a bad bet, but could be a decent parlay piece as well.
Yeah, it would be violence for me, if anything. I really wanted to play violence in the Kamela Kirk fight, but this one's a little bit more tricky. There's some unknowns, some question marks about Rajabov coming in here on short notice. Has he been training? Does he have good cardio coming in here? I don't know. So we'll have to see. But yeah, I would lean violence myself on that one. All right. We'll move on to the next fight. And yeah, still nothing on Bet Online for this one yet, but we have some 5 dimes here. We have Farid Basharat going against Damon Blackshear. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 minus 155, under 2.5 plus 125. The fight goes decision minus 130. The fight doesn't go decision plus 100. This is one where I'd kind of lean to that the fight goes to decision. Blackshear, he's never been finished, 4 losses. He does tend to slow down, especially if that's a law fight, but he did come in there on short notice, but have seen him slowing down in the past as well. I do lean towards Blackshear winning this fight, winning it by decision. The look for me would be these overs. Weezy, anything sticking out to you?
Yeah, I'm looking at the overs as well here, but they are just a little bit shaded to the overpriced side here. We could see, like, for instance, fight goes to decision, overpriced by about 5.9%. And fight doesn't go to decision, overpriced by about 0.6%. So they're just shading these prices a little bit towards the non-violence, a little bit towards the overs. Farid Basharat, 6 of his 9 fights have finished inside the distance as a pro that have been scheduled for 3 rounds, that is. And for Blackshear, it's 6 of 11 3-round fights have finished inside the distance. So we do see that 40% of their combined pro fights have went to decision. And only one of one, because Blackshear made his debut on short notice going up against Yusuf Zalal, who's not much of a finisher at this level. So, yeah, I mean, like, they're shading it towards the non-violent side. I think stylistically that Farid is not like this savage finisher, and neither is Damon Blackshear. And I think they're both very defensively sound. And if we go over here to the advanced stats, Brady, and take a quick look, I think we're going to find that Damon Blackshear has never been finished in his career. Let's look.
Yes, sir. Not even by Pat Sabatini.
Yes, sir. So there you go. I think the overs in this spot is the way to play this. Fight goes to decision minus 130, over 2.5 at minus 155. I think they're both pretty fairly priced in terms of there's not, you're paying vig here and not much else in terms of the pricing of the line. Stylistically, I like this to go over, and I think it's not terribly overpriced, but we're missing some data here. 1 UFC fight for Blackshear and 0 for Basharat. So we just don't know how they're going to do at this level. But because these overs are not overpriced, and because we've never seen either of these guys finished in their career, I think I would have to say the overs are the way to go in this fight.
Yep, I would lean overs myself. I actually don't hate those prices at all, really. So I guess maybe, like I said, I could see maybe like a Farid late finish. Maybe that's why I lean the over 2.5 a little bit more. But yeah, I think overs on this one for me, if anything. All right, let us keep moving on. We have the Baby Shark Tabitha Ricci going against Jessica Penne. We got the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. Bet Online has these props out, which is nice. The over 2.5 juice to minus 320, under 2.5 plus 260. The fight goes to decision minus 290. The fight doesn't go plus 230. They're all over it, WEEZY. I think this fight does go to decision more often than not. I don't think either fighter is really live for a KO. Both fighters black belts. I think both fighters should be able to stay out of the other fighters' submission attempts. I think it's a pretty clear fight goes to decision here for me. Maybe a potential parlay piece, but like I said, I think they're all over in this one. WEEZY, anything sticking out to you here?
What's sticking out to me is that it appears to be almost a perfectly priced line here. So we look and see where the VIG is. The VIG is shaded towards these non-violence lines as the fight goes overpriced by 4% according to the benchmark. Fight doesn't go, only overpriced by 1.35% according to the benchmark. And then you see here that 33% of their fights have not went to decision at the UFC level, and we're paying 32.79% on the line. So very fairly priced. The under 2.5, a little bit better priced, right? Because neither one of these ladies has finished a fight in the last 2.5 minutes of the fight. So we get a little bit value there. It's actually a trifecta bet, the under 2.5 rounds, but it's not the kind of trifecta bet you go run into the window for, because it's less than 0.2% underpriced here, and then 5.5% here. So, the savings of all three metrics that we compute here on probability add up to about 11%. And we're getting a big fat plus money number. What you're hoping there is that, maybe somebody lands a big shot on the feet, maybe a good body kick, maybe a good leg kick, shuts down a leg, or one of these ladies gets a submission on the ground. And Penne is very dangerous, and Tabitha Ricci is very dangerous. So at plus 260, I think that's the way to go. If you're looking for these overs, just know that you are overpaying on all three metrics here, Brady. Overpaying by 4% according to the benchmark, overpaying by 6% according to the 2/3 fight goes to decision rate of these two ladies combined at the UFC level, because we're paying 72% and overpriced by about 2% here. So, I would say that the best bet on this would be the under 2.5 rounds, which is listed at plus 260.
Sounds good. Juicy under there. For me, it's the other way, but I'm not laying minus 300 on and over in this fight, but kind of lean towards Ricci by decision, but nothing sticking out here for me.
Yeah, definitely, dude. It's overpriced, and we're just looking at the analytics here. I mean, I see this fight going over as well. I would be surprised if it finished under 2.5 rounds, but just know if you're making that bet, the analytics are telling you, hey, it's underpriced. If you do this 10 times, you probably cash 3 of them, and you wind up winning a little bit of money over the long run.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's move on to the next one. A very intriguing fight here. We have Cameron Simon going against Mana Martinez. The over-under set at 2.5 rounds. So the over 2.5 is minus 115. The under 2.5 is minus 115. Money's pouring in on these overs. The fight goes to decision on BetOnline plus 155. And then the fight doesn't go to decision minus 190. So yeah, I actually lead violence here in this one, and that under 2.5 at minus 115 is very intriguing. But yeah, money's continuing to pour on these overs, it looks like. WEEZY, what are your thoughts on this one?
Did you say that BetOnline opened the fight goes and the fight doesn't go here?
Yep.
Oh, okay, that's new. So you said the fight doesn't go is minus 190, right?
Yep.
And the fight goes is what?
155.
155, okay. Oh, wow. Well, okay, so we've only got a 4-fight sample size for these guys at the UFC level, Brady, but they're loving overs in this fight. Plus 155 is a 39% implied probability. 50% of bantamweight fights go to decision, so we're underpaying by 11.4% there. 3 of these guys' 4 combined UFC fights have went over or have went to decision. That's a 35% savings in a small sample size, of course, right? But over the 39% implied probability of the line. And also keep in mind that Simon finishes fights late, so if you're looking for overs here, you might want to go with like the over 2.5 instead. But it's right now the over. Where does BetOnline have the over 2.5? Can you tell me that, Brady?
Yeah, it's just 115 each way, minus 115.
Minus 115. Okay, so you can't do that, because you see that's underpriced by 3.5% according to the benchmark, but this one's underpriced by 11.4%. And we have to remember that only 6.4% of these fights actually finish in the last 2%. So when you're paying up 14% when you should only be paying up 6%, that's too much. So I would say that the fight goes. You're going to have to take the risk that nobody gets the finish here in the last 2.5 minutes of the round. Mana Martinez definitely has power, but we just haven't seen him almost finish anybody yet at the UFC level. Even Ronnie Lawrence really wasn't close to being finished when he got dropped twice in that fight. So I'm going to go with the fight goes to decision at plus 155 here. I think that's a very cheeky way to look at this. And I like that plus money number. And Mana's been pretty durable at this level. And so is Cameron Simon. Cameron Simon absolutely has a chin on him. So I think I might take the big flat plus money number here and go fight goes to decision.
Yeah, fair enough. So maybe that's why money's coming on these overs. Yeah, these UFC finish numbers, they're ugly, but altogether, I mean, like as a whole, like they're both really good finishers. Like I think they have a combined, maybe is it like a combined like 2 finish win or 2 decision wins, something like that.
It looks like only 1 in 3-round fights. So they either. So we've got Simon has had 1 5-round fight, and that went to decision. But for the purposes of prop template, Brady, I don't include 5-round fights when we're breaking down 3-round fights because it's a different style and it messes up the data a little bit. So yeah, these guys have been to decision twice in their career, but in 3-round fights, it's only happened once.
Okay. Yeah, right now I think I'm going to sit back. I think money's going to keep coming in on these overs though. And if I get a fight doesn't go at plus money, I might take that. But I get the angle on an over. Like maybe like I don't know. That would scare me. Like an over. I don't know. I can't do it. I think these guys are going to stand and bang. So I'm kind of leaning the other way, going against the analytics on this one. But I'm not touching the minus 180 right now. That's for sure. I'm going to wait for these lines to come down a little bit.
Absolutely. I hear you, man.
All right, we will keep moving on then, and BetOnline just dropped props for this one too. So we have Song Kanan going against Ian Gary, and I got to actually go to BetOnline because on BetOnline they have Ian Machado Gary, and then on Best Fight Odds they only have Ian Gary, so it's not showing up. So the over/under set at 2.5 rounds on BetOnline. The over 2.5 plus 165, and the under 2.5 minus 205. The fight goes to decision plus 195. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 250. Juiced, definitely juiced, violent spot. I lean towards Gary finishing Song at some point, but I don't know if I lean minus 250 there. WEEZY, what's sticking out on this one?
Hang on just a second here, dude. 71%. 55%. Okay, good. Yeah, this thing's just getting a little bit weird. I had to paste numbers into this particular spreadsheet this time. The fight goes, where did they put that?
Plus 195.
195. And do we still have plus 165 and minus 205 for the over and the under 2.5?
Yep.
All right, cool. So these non-violence bets are definitely underpriced at these spots. 16%, almost 17% here according to the benchmark. 16% here. And we can see that 44%, so 4 out of 9 of their combined UFC fights have went to decision. So right now it's actually liking the overs here because we've seen Gary go over 2.5 2 out of 3 times, and we've seen Song go 2 out of 6 times. But Song Kanan, this looks like a setup fight, for Ian Gary, and the line tells you that as well. Song Kanan has been knocked out before at the UFC level, and he hasn't fought in a couple of years, I think, at this point. He's coming off a knockout loss to Max Griffin, who's not much of a finisher at this level either, right? So, yeah, I think that this one probably does finish inside the distance, but we're overpaying, according to the benchmark here, Brady, by 22%, and we're overpaying according to their combined 9-fight sample size at the UFC level for these violence benchmarks. So those unders just aren't bettable. They're too juiced. And you're going to be pissed off at Ian Gary if he takes his time and picks this dude apart, right? And if that's the case, you're going to pay a lot of juice and lose the bet. They're just not giving you enough plus money to go after these overs, I think, because I do think it's a setup fight for Gary, but man, you just can't overpay by 22% according to the benchmarks for the division for a guy in Ian Gary who has only finished 1 of his 3 UFC fights thus far under 2.5 rounds, and he hasn't fought the best competition either. So yeah, I would just stay away from this one. But if you put a gun to my head and told me I had to make a bet here, I'd take the plus money on over 2.5 or fight goes and just cross my fingers. Hope that they pull it off.
Same, but I'm not doing it. I'm staying away from this one. I think it's probably one to stay away from. But yeah, they're overpricing a lot of these violence props this week, it seems like.
Yeah, and it's so hard when they do that, Brady. It just makes it so hard for us because you can't just piss away value over and over and over again because we know that weird shit happens.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Weezy, let's keep moving on to the next fight. Then we have a flyweight fight between Vivian Araujo and Amanda Hebos. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 minus 260. The under 2.5 plus 200. The fight goes to decision minus 250. The fight doesn't go to decision plus 195. Very, very juiced over here, but can't really debate it much. I think this fight does go to decision more often than not. If there is a finish, it's probably like a Vivian early knockout or something, but I think this fight probably goes. Weezy, what's sticking out here to you in this one?
Yeah, we can't really do much here, Brady. When we look at this line right here, the combined UFC performances, because we've got a 14 fight sample size here of 3-round fights between Araujo and Hebos, and they each have 7, right? So this is one where we can really lean on the data. But the data is telling us that the lines are perfectly priced. For instance, fight goes to decision, 70.6% implied probability. Well, 10 of these ladies' 14 UFC fights have went to decision, and that shows us that this is underpriced by less than 1% here and 12% based on the benchmark for the division, which is 59%. So, it's a very well-priced line, but you're paying a lot of juice to bet these overs. You're getting a lot here. This under 1.5 is perfectly priced here. You're paying VIG here, and you're only overpaying by 1.3% on this benchmark, and you're underpaying by 1.43% on that benchmark. These ones are actually underpriced according to the benchmark, but they're overpriced according to the combined performance. All that means, Brady, I've got no lean here, and I won't even give out a bet because I think that this is so perfectly priced. You kind of just have to go on the stylistic comparison. So I would just take the plus money. That way I could bet less money and there would be less loss if I'm wrong. I think you're muted.
Oh, first one of the year on probability. I had to get the first one out, but yeah, it's a pass for me, Weezy. We can move on to the next one. This next one's very interesting, though. Curious to your thoughts on this one. A line that just doesn't make a ton of sense to me personally, but we'll see. We have the Julian Marquez going against Marc-Andre Barrio. We have the fight goes to decision plus 240. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 300. The over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 plus 130. And the under 2.5 is minus 160. I mean, I'm baffled here. I have no reason why. Like, why is this fight doesn't go to decision minus 300 for two extremely durable guys? I mean, Marquez next level durable. Sure, he got knocked out by RoboCop, and same thing with Marc-Andre Barrio. Sure, he got knocked out by Chidi, but typically these guys, their best assets, that durability. So I don't know what's going on here. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I love the overs, but just know that minus 300 for the fight doesn't go and the plus 240 for fight goes are on 5 dimes. And Bet Online opened this line in a lot more sane way, with that over 2.5 being a plus 130 and the under 2.5 being a plus 160. So we could see here, right? The over 2.5 is 43.5%. The fight goes is 29.5%. So that's a 14% difference in implied probability, but we only really have like a 5.5% difference here. So if you can get that fight goes to decision at plus 240, I would suggest you just grab it because it probably shouldn't be anywhere near there. It should honestly probably be a lot closer to like plus 170, 160 even. So yeah, I think that one is really like, but I don't have access to that line. But Brady, what we do have access to is plus 130 here for the over 2.5, and that's a trifecta bet. We are underpriced by 5% according to the benchmark for the division. These guys are going over 2.5 in a 14-fight sample size scheduled for 3 rounds at a 50% clip, but we're only paying 43%. And these guys are going over 2.5 at a 50% clip, while the division only goes over 2.5 at a 48% clip. 6.5% saving, 1.5% saving, 5% saving. That's a 13% saving overall. Plus, we're getting plus money. Plus, we can rely on both the durability of Marquez and Barrio. The only thing that we have to worry about is maybe a submission from Marquez if this thing gets the ground, or Marquez just blocking punches with his face, and despite him being durable, the referee stepping in to stop it. But this is the analytics love this over 2.5 at plus 130, and it might be something I have to play.
Yep. I mean, it literally makes no sense to me whatsoever. I don't get it. I'm not sure what's going on here. But yeah, we'll see what happens. That's probably a bet I'll be getting to, and I never play overs. I played one this year, lost that one, but maybe I'll play this one. Maybe even it up 1-1 this year if this hits. So yeah, don't hate that whatsoever.
Agreed.
All right. We'll keep moving on then. We have Derek Brunson going against Dricus Duplessis. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 plus 155. The under 2.5 minus 185. The fight goes to decision plus 180. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 220. And yeah, there's not much we can really do here. I mean, I think Dricus eventually finds the finish at some point in this fight, but minus 220. I mean, I'm okay on that. WEEZY, anything sticking out here?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the minus 205 for fight doesn't go to decision because that's overpriced by 10% here according to the benchmark. But it's underpriced according to these guys' performance in 3-round fights at the UFC level. And Brady, we got an 18-fight sample size. And not only that, we got a guy in Dricus Duplessis who's what?
A killer
be killed fighter, right, Brady? So maybe minus 205 for fight doesn't go to decision as a parlay piece this week because we do have a 5% break here, a 15% break here. And you can even see Duplessis and Brunson outside the UFC. Their fights are finishing inside the distance 81% of the time. In addition to that, you got Brunson, who does really great work on the ground. If he's getting takedowns in the first and in the second round, high probability of a ground and pound finish, in my opinion, for Derek Brunson, because he does great work on the ground. But if he's not able to get those takedowns, he's not going to be able to take the kind of beating on the feet that Brad Tavares did. So I really do see this fight finishing inside the distance. And when you get a 20% saving here based on those fighter performance benchmarks, but you're only overpaying by 10% here, it leads me to believe that this line can keep going. It might go to minus 250, maybe to minus 300. So at minus 205, I think that's a very playable line for fight doesn't go to decision. I think we can make it a parlay piece this week.
I don't hate it. The only problem is that's on 5 times, so we don't really have access.
Yeah.
And the Bet Online has minus 220, so a little bit worse of a price. But yeah, I don't hate the fight doesn't go as a parlay piece. I don't want to say I'd be shocked if it went the distance. If it went the distance, that probably means that Brunson was able to wrestle and win minutes on the map.
Exactly. That's how I see it as well. But Duplessis has been finished in both of his losses, so it's an interesting stylistic matchup here. But I do like that price at minus 205. It's not bad, but I'll put it at minus 220 because that's where it's actually bettable right now on Bet Online, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Don't hate it. Don't hate it as a parlay piece for sure. All right. WEEZY, let's move on to a very interesting fight. We have Cody Garbrandt going against Trevin Jones. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 plus 160, the under 2.5 minus 200. The fight goes to decision plus 190. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 230. Once again, Bet Online completely overpricing these violence props and what looks to be on paper a violent fight. There's no way I'm touching the minus 230. Like, if anything, it's probably like the over at this point because, Trevin Jones, the guy's never been knocked out. Of course, we know Cody, all he does is get knocked out, but I could see a scenario where both these guys just don't do anything. Trevin Jones doesn't do anything in general. Maybe Cody slows the fight down, goes out there and tries to avoid exchanging with the guy for 3 rounds. So I could see this fight going the distance. Minus 230, I can't get there. WEEZY, what are your thoughts on this?
It's a tough one, dude. It really is. Because we're overpaying by 21% here, 23% here, 16.75% here, and we're still not getting big numbers here. We're getting a 2.38% savings here, an 8.33% overpricing on the 58.33% under 2.5 rate of these guys. Both of these guys have had a fight finish in the last 2.5 minutes of round 3. So it goes from 5 to 7 to 6 to 7 here, and it goes from 2 of 5 here to 3 of 5. So that percentage goes from 58 up to 75 here. So, I mean, maybe if your stylistic read on this fight is that both of these guys are chinny, one of them's likely to get a finish here, then that's fine. But I'm not laying that kind of juice here on either one of these guys getting a finish. I don't know where Garbrandt is at this point in his career, and he's definitely been chinny. And Trevor Jones has shown some power. But here we see some nice underpricings, right? But even when you go down here, and we got a 12-fight sample size of 3-round fights for these guys, we're just, I mean, like the only bettable line would be the over 2.5, in my opinion, at plus 160, because it's underpriced by 18.5%, but actually it's also underpriced according to the metric for these guys that 41.67% of their 12 combined UFC fights that have been scheduled for 3 rounds have went over 2.5, and we're only paying 38.46%. It's a plus 160 number. We know we can kind of count on the durability of Trevor Jones for 2.5 rounds at least. And maybe if Garbrandt's chin has made a little bit of a rebound, he's still young. That would probably be the only bettable line that I'm seeing from the analytics here, Brady.
Yep, agreed. But man, what a sweat!
I know it's so, but those violence lines are overpriced
Big time
for a reason, right? Because it would be such a sweaty over to bet.
I know. I mean, it could just take one shot, and boom, your bet's done.
They're just sleeping. Like at the end, dude, that was like the end of that first round of the Austin South fight where he threw that left hook from like Pluto and it totally slept him. Yeah. I could see overbettors being like, no, you know.
Yeah.
And it could absolutely happen in this fight. So I don't.
It's a weird fight.
This feels like a huge stay away for me.
Yeah, I can't get to anything on this fight. Should be a fun fight to watch though, but I don't know about betting this one. But we can definitely move on. We have the main card opener. We got Bo Nickal going against Jamie Pickett. The over/under set at 1.5 rounds, and the over 1.5 is plus 215. The under 1.5 minus 275. The fight goes to decision plus 600. The fight does a good decision minus 1,000, and I think that'll probably get wider throughout the week as well. WEEZY, what is sticking out here to you?
We should get a get a scrolling banner that says "juice to the tits" because that is what these violence lines are. Look at this. We got overpriced by 29% here on the fight doesn't go to decision. Overpriced by almost 30% here on the under 2.5, and overpriced by 36% on the under 1.5, minus 275, a 73.33% implied probability. The betting line is telling you that this fight goes under 1.5 rounds. When less than half of that actually do go under 1.5 rounds, 37.25% of 185 pounds fights that are scheduled for 3 rounds go under 1.5 rounds, and we are paying 73.33%. Such an amazing overpricing. And only 2 of 6 of Jamie Pickett's fights have went under 2 or under 1.5 rounds at the UFC level. So that's 33%, and we're paying 73% on the line. You know, what if Bo Nichols' coaches are telling him, hey, man, you know, get a feel for the octagon. Take this prick down, get to half guard, and punish him a little bit, you know, but get used to being in there. That could be something that they tell him, you know. This guy doesn't get style points. He's not getting a bonus for finishing Jamie Pickett. Everybody expects him to finish Jamie Pickett. There's 13 other fights on this card, right? So unless he goes out there and sparks Pickett in like 8 seconds with a Superman punch, I don't think he's getting a bonus. He might actually take his time just a little bit. And I would just, you know, as tempting as it might be to parlay Bo Nickal here, we're not parlaying minus 1,000 for fight doesn't go to decision. I got a minus 435 for the under 2.5. I mean, you can't do anything with that. This is a pass, you guys. Maybe if you got balls that are big enough to fit in a wheelbarrow, you bet the over here. I won't be doing it.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, we'll have to see what other props come out. Lou's asked me if Jamie Pickett's a bum. Yeah, he's not that great.
Compared to Bo Nickal, he just might be, man. It's rough. I mean, we're going to find out, though. Hey, look, Jamie's been here. You know, Bo Nickal has 3 pro fights. You know, you just don't know. But, yeah, I mean, the kid looks to be obviously special.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see if any other lines jump out, but right now, nothing's really sticking out to me. All right, let's move on to the next fights. We have Mateus Gamrock going against Jalen Turner. We have the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 plus 125. Under 2.5 is minus 155. The fight goes to decision plus 150. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 180. And I think it's a sneaky violent spot here. We have a killer be killed fighter in Jalen Turner, a 100% finish rate, never won a decision. And then we have Jalen Turner, who's been finished 3 times by knockout. And Gamrot's dangerous. I mean, Gamrot has power. He knocked out Scott Holtzman. He knocked out Carlos Diego Ferreira with that knee. He has a really good submission game as well. Like, I could see either guy finishing this one. On top of that, Gamrot coming in on short notice. I think it's a violent spot that's, for once, not completely overpriced here that I'm considering. WEEZY, what are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. When you look at the template here, we see overpricings on the violent side, 9.67%, 14.07, 13.68. So, you don't want all that value for the player performance props, which we have down here, being sucked out by overpricings according to the benchmark. And it's not, right? Because we've got a 13 fight sample size of fights here. Turner, 7 of 8 fights haven't went to decision. Gamrock, 3 of 5 fights that are scheduled for 3 rounds haven't went to decision. So 77% of their fights are finishing inside the distance. We're paying 64% on the line. That's tempting. It's very tempting. And these guys are actually finishing fights at a 26% rate, greater than what the division does. The division finishes fights in 3 rounds at 50.6%, but they're doing it here at 77%. So, usually when you see these kind of underpricings, you're going to find more overpricings according to that benchmark. And here, I think that they're actually reasonably priced, because you could take the 13% off of these and still have all this value down here. Look at here, though. Like, you're getting a 9.4% break, but you're overpaying by 42% based on the metrics here. So the prop template absolutely does love violence here. And we're going to take a look at that fight doesn't go to decision at minus 180 as a potential parlay piece for this week.
Yeah, I think it's solid. Definitely like violence in this fight. I mean, pretty much every Jalen Turner fight, you can expect some violence one way or another. So yeah, give me violence on this one for sure. And I like that the analytics back it up as well.
They certainly do, Brady. I'm putting that there. I'm putting a little PP next to that minus 180 when we talk about this probability parlay this week.
Perfect. All right, WEEZY. Let's move on to a really interesting fight. We got Shavkat Rakhmonov going against Jeff Neal. The over-under is actually set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 plus 150. The under 2.5 minus 180. The fight goes to decision plus 185. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 225. Kind of shocked they didn't put the over-under at 1.5 rounds, considering Shavkat has a 100% finish rate, never been the distance. But here we are, 2.5 rounds, and the under is juiced to minus 180. WEEZY, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, so we've got a nice fat overpricing here, 22.37%, 18.92%, and that's a little more overpriced than what we just saw here. I just click back to the Gamrock Turner tab. We see 13%, 14% overpricings. Here we're paying up a little bit more, but we would kind of expect that, right? I mean, this guy Rakhmonov has never seen a decision in his career, and he's never lost. And we look at the fighter performances here. Both of these guys, 75% for fight doesn't go to decision and under 2.5 rounds. Maybe fight doesn't start round 3, Brady, when that one actually becomes available. Might be a cheeky way to get a little bit cheaper line on this fight than what the under 2.5 is here. But I can bless this under 2.5 here, I believe, as probably the better bet. It's a Shavkat Rakhmonov fight. He's never went over 12 and a half minutes at the UFC level. And as a matter of fact, he's never even seen a third round at the UFC level. And I believe in his career, Shavkat's seen a third round once. Let me see here. 8 of 9. Yeah. 8 of his 9 fights outside the UFC that were scheduled for 3 rounds have not went to round 3. The only one was the Faradun Odolov fight, where he was almost finished actually in the second round and came back in the third to get a finish. Yeah, Shavkat's got great cardio, And Jeff Neal is not a guy who's ever been finished at the UFC level. He has been finished prior to being in the UFC. So it's a Shavkat fight. And these violence lines, while they are overpriced, they're not horribly overpriced yet. So I could see people parlaying up fight doesn't go to decision at minus 260. But I would encourage them to go to the under 2.5 at minus 180 if they are on the violence side, because that is much cheaper according to the analytics. 4% cheaper here, 8% cheaper here, and 4% cheaper here. So go under 2.5 if you're on the violence side rather than the fight doesn't go to decision, because the price is much better. And I don't have the sack to bet overs here. Sorry. So I think I'm just going to stay away from this one because I think it's a little bit overpriced on the violence side. I'm not going to get there, but I think that's probably the way this one goes.
Yeah, it's hard not to see it that way. At one point, they had the under 2.5 at minus 166 on Bet Online, but some money came in on that. Now minus 180. We have some people in the chat interested in the over 1.5. The over under 1.5 is set at minus 115 each way. Anything sticking out there?
Minus 115. Minus 115. It's not great either way. That's a pretty fairly priced line. It looks like it's priced, right where it should be in terms of how the under 2.5 and the fight doesn't go are priced according to the benchmark. And I still like the under 2.5 as the best violence betting line.
Sounds good to me. Don't know if I'll get there, but yeah, I definitely lean violence. So we'll see. All right, we have 2 fights left. We have the co-main event. This is a 5-round fight between Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grosso. We have the over-under set at 4.5 rounds. The over 4.5 plus 120. The under 4.5 minus 150. The fight goes to decision plus 140. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 170. So the bookies are definitely thinking violence. I can definitely see violence, but I don't know if I'll be laying minus 170. WEEZY, what is sticking out to you in this co-main event?
Yeah, it's a hard one to call because the prop template isn't going to be as much help for these last 2 fights because I still haven't created a 5-round prop template. Valentina Shevchenko has only had 3 fights at the UFC level that were scheduled for 3 rounds, and they were a long time ago. Grosso's had 9. 2 of her 9 fights have not went to decision. 7 of her 9 have went to decision. But this is a 5-round fight, and Grosso, I believe, has only been scheduled for 5 rounds once. Or maybe I'm even wrong about it. She had a main event recently, right?
Grosso?
Yeah.
Versus Viviane Araujo, yeah.
Okay, so 1 5-round fight there. So, yeah, it's hard to know here. Let's look at the benchmarks or the analytics here. Women's flyweight fights are only finishing inside the distance 36% of the time for 5-round fights. And we are paying 63% here. So that's a very big overpricing according to the benchmark for the division. So I think I would, probably lean towards the overs on this particular fight. I think that these ladies are going to be well matched on the feet. The question is Valentina going to be able to get to the ground, get on top, get in that crucifix position and really make Grosso pay? Grosso's ground game is definitely starting to improve, but has it improved to the level where she's going to be able to hang with Valentina Shevchenko on the ground? That's a little piece of missing information that we don't have yet. But Alexa Grosso at the UFC level, if we look at the advanced stats here, Brady, has shown 65.5% takedown defense, and she's been controlled for 17% of her UFC cage time, while Valentina Shevchenko is accruing 28% control time, 64%, takedown offense. She probably does get this fight to the feet, and to the ground. And if she does, there's a high probability of this one finishing inside the distance. But just know that, as far as 5-round fights in the flyweight division go, almost all of that sample size is Valentina Shevchenko, right, Brady? So when we're looking here at these 5-round analytics and we're seeing that only 36% of flyweight fights that are scheduled for 5 rounds, and there's only been 11 of them, are finishing inside the distance, I would say that you would have to look to the overs here because that's the way the analytics would be pointing you.
Yeah, I think it's one I'll probably just stay away from. Because I could definitely see Valentina kind of taking her time, keeping it on the feet for a good part. But if she does get this fight down to the mat, I'll have some. And I had it over, I'd be sweating very bad if she got on top of Grosso here. So it's a pass for me. But I won't be laying the -170 here on the fight doesn't go. I think it's a little bit too much there.
Agreed. Let's get to Jones Gane. This is an interesting one.
Let's do it. All right, 5-round heavyweight fight here. We have Jon Jones going against Ciryl Gane. All right, so this is weird, Weezy. We have a 5-round heavyweight fight, and we have like these overs are juiced. Like the over 1.5 is like -410. The over 2.5 is -235. You got the over 3.5 -170. The over 4.5 -145. You have to lay some juice to get that fight goes to decision at -125. Like we typically don't see that, but this is a very intriguing matchup where both guys aren't the best finishers in the world. So I have a feeling the analytics are going to like some violence here just because of these numbers and heavyweight fight in the 5-round especially. But Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one? A pretty interesting one here.
Yeah, there have been 63 fights in the UFC that have been scheduled for 5 rounds in the heavyweight division. The only other division that's close is welterweight with 64, and then it's middleweight with 59, light heavyweight with 53. People like seeing the big boys go the distance, right? So they schedule a lot of these fights for 5 rounds. In a 63 fight sample size, dude, almost 80% of these fights are finishing inside the distance. That means that we should be paying around -400 if we're getting a benchmark price for the division for fights to finish inside the distance, right? -400, and we're only paying -105? That is like a 30% difference in implied probability right there. Now, the prop template, you guys, I have to apologize. It's just not going to be any help for this fight because the prop template is a 3-round prop template, right? But we've got Jon Jones has never been scheduled for 3 rounds in the last 10 years. So if we look at Jon Jones's just performances here, we will see in these 10 fights, the average cage time, though, is 20 minutes and 46 seconds. So the average fight's going past the 4th round. You know, it's going into the 5th. Jon Jones has finished 2 of his 9 UFC wins and has never been finishing the losses. So only 2 of Jon Jones's 10 fights that have been scheduled for 5 rounds since 2013. I don't have the stats pre-2013 anymore. So a 20% finish rate for him. But that's at 205. That was when he was in his late 20s and early 30s. Now he's mid-30s. Now he hasn't fought in 3 years. And now he's fighting up a weight class against guys that hit different. And he's actually going to be fighting somebody that matches his athleticism. You know, what if Ciryl Gane can stop the takedowns? You know, I mean, I think that there's a high probability that this fight finishes inside the distance, whether Jones gets them or not. Because if Jones gets this guy down and gets on top of him, he does really good work. He's really long. So he's going to be tricky with his submissions and his ground and pound. He's got great elbows on the ground. He can cut you, right? But if he's wrestling early, Brady, and he's unsuccessful trying to bring down a 260-pound dude instead of a 205-pound dude, he hasn't fought in 3 years. We don't know how much this guy's been training. He could have an adrenaline dump. He could gas out trying to push a wrestling heavy game plan here unsuccessfully. And if he does that and Gane starts tagging him up from a distance, I don't think you're going to see Jon Jones show the kind of chin that maybe Ngannou has, maybe that even Tai Tuivasa, who got the shit beaten out of him for 3 full rounds. I mean, even he showed a chin before he finally got knocked out. Yeah, dude, this is one that I think you bet these overs at your own peril because there's so much missing information on the Jones side in terms of how is he going to look here? And if there's any kind of difference between how people think he's going to look and how he actually looks, when you're underpaying 30% according to the long-term benchmark in 5-round fights for violence here, I think you're going to you're going to pass up that minus 105 for fight doesn't go to decision at your own peril this week.
Yeah, I mean, like the overs, it makes sense until you look at the prices. Like these prices are just wild. Yeah, like sure, it should go over, get extended a little bit, but you can't lay minus 560 on an over 1.5. You can't lay minus 305 on an over 2.5. I just can't do it. So,
Can I show
I
you
don't.
something, Brady? Can I
Yeah,
show
go
you
ahead.
something? You want to have fun with this?
Let's have
Let's
some
see what the
fun.
over 1.5 is for Penne Ricci.
Okay.
It's minus 510.
What the heck?
It's actually more expensive for two heavyweight men for an over 1.5 rounds in a heavyweight fight. Where guess what? Let's look at how many of these guys are finishing in under 1.5 rounds even. Under 1.5 in the heavyweight weight class happens almost 50% of the time. Dude, you might want to sprinkle an under 1.5 and under 2.5, a big fat plus money number here, because this is a heavyweight fight. And we don't know if Jon Jones could show up all coked up and with a half bottle of tequila in him for all we know. You know, with this guy, he's a bit of a wild card at this point, and he hasn't fought in 3 years. So yeah, these unders, my God, are they underpriced? I think I'm gonna have to start sprinkling some of this shit as soon as the show's over, man.
Yeah, I mean it's wild. It is wild. You never see heavyweight lines juice that much to the overs ever.
Yeah, and I mean, like all these people that are betting on Jon Jones, I don't think they're really saying that he's gonna like dance around and outpoint Gane. I
No.
think what they're saying is he's gonna take Gane down and punish him. And dude, if he gets on top of Gane and Gane doesn't have an answer, he can't get off his back, Jones might finish him early with ground and pound or with a submission. We're going to find out what Ciryl Gane's ground game is like if Jones is able to get this guy down.
Yep, for sure. It's an interesting fight, so we'll have to see. But yeah, maybe a plus money shot and the fight doesn't go. I don't think it's the worst look in the world. But there's so many question marks and unknowns with Jon Jones coming up to heavyweight.
I couldn't agree more, dude. I mean, you got 22 and a half minutes for a heavyweight fight to finish if you take the under 4.5 rounds here. And the under 4.5 happens 75% of the time, you know, and it's a heavyweight fight. And one guy's coming off a 3-year layoff. The other guy we haven't seen in over a year. Who knows what happens in there, man?
Yeah, it's just a weird fight. So many question marks, so many red flags. But yeah, WEEZY, we did it. Went through all 14 fights. Do you want to quickly go through some spots that stuck out and see if we can hit another PP this week?
Yeah, you know, I mean, like, and there's not a lot of big juiced bets here that I like in terms of, parlaying stuff. But we talked about Brunson Duplessis fight doesn't go to decision, and we also talked about how underpriced the Turner Gamrock fight doesn't go to decision is. If we were to parlay those two lines, the minus 220 and the minus 180, what would that give us?
Plus 126.
What do you think of that, Brady?
I think it's pretty good, man. I think both fights finish.
Yeah, I think they do too. I mean, Jalen Turner is such a finisher, but if Gamrock keeps putting him in positions where he's on his back, Gamrock could absolutely finish him as well. And Jalen, with that length, might be able to sneak up get a sneaky submission. And if Gamrock's unable to take him down and hold him down, I mean, Turner's going to box his face off with that length advantage. So let's go with that for the PP this week, plus 126. And then the other spots that were sticking out for me: fight doesn't go to decision, Rajabov versus Ribovic. Fight goes to decision at minus 130 for Blackshear Basharat. The under 2.5 for Ricci Penne at plus 260 is actually a trifecta bet, but not the kind you go running to the window for. But it is a big fat plus money number. Fight goes to decision for Mana Martinez versus Cameron Simon at plus 155. Might be worth a look. Over 2.5 for Gary versus Song Kanan at plus 165. Might not be a bad look, but God, would it be a sweat. And I don't know if I could count on Song Kanan's durability. Araujo Hebos pass. The over 2.5 for Barrio Marquez, I think, is a bet that I'm going to be making at plus money. And we talked about the two parlay pieces. And then I also like the over 2.5 at plus 160 for Garbrandt versus Jones. A big fat plus money number, but you'd have to be trusting the durability of Cody Garbrandt, which you might not be comfortable with.
Yeah, 2 spots I'll be getting on is the Turner Gamrock fight doesn't go, and then that Marc-Andre Barrio Marquez, I think over 2.5 is something I'll be looking at as well. Those spots probably stuck out to me the most. And then I like that parlay, that PP, the Brunson Duplessis fight doesn't go, and then also that the Turner fight doesn't go. So yeah, a couple spots sticking out this week. I like this card. It's a fun card from a fan perspective, betting perspective, not the best in the world, but this card's so good.
Yeah, it is. It's a fantastic card, and hopefully we can find ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks this week and go into next week with a nice little winning streak, Brady.
Absolutely. Let's do it. All right, Weezy. Let the people know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week, and what your plans are for this UFC 285 fight week.
Yeah, so tomorrow night, Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy, 10 o'clock Central Time. You know the drill there. Wednesday, I'll be going live with the Couch Warrior and Addicted to Combat, and also Ben the Bane Davis. We're going to do a panel breakdown of this entire card, and then look for a greasy 4-leg parlay and potentially an Ask Weezy later this week on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy. Tomorrow on Pub Sports Radio with Brady, we'll be doing this DFS show, breaking down this card from a DraftKings perspective as well. God bless each and every one of you guys for watching us here on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 285. Beat these bookies with a bag of oranges until they cry, and we can have a nice glass of orange juice while they squirm and cry below us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. You can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. I just posted my full card breakdown prediction video. Catch me on Pub Sports Radio Wednesday for the DFS show, and then going to be going live Friday for best bet. I think I'm going to be doing either on Friday or Thursday night, and then also the live stream Friday for the final thoughts as well. Leave a like, subscribe, and best of luck for UFC 285. We'll talk to you guys soon. See you later.